Hey guys, it's Joey. I am still missing you all and can't believe it's been this long since we've got to see each other. But I want you to know that I'm doing well. I hope that you're doing well. And I want to say thank you for joining me this week in this quick little Bible study right before Easter. Likely throughout this week, you've heard about the crucifixion of Christ and Jesus on the cross, what that was like. And tomorrow you're going to hear what I consider the greatest story ever told, and the probably the most important thing about me and my faith, which is the resurrection of Christ. Again, spoiler alert, sorry. But today, to build off what we've covered so far, I want to cover two more accounts here in Luke. So there's actually going to be two parts. We're going to do the first part now, and we're going to do the second part here in a second, right after that. So go ahead and read Luke 23, verses 13 through 25, and then come right back. Great. A little crazy, right? So essentially what's going on here is Jesus has been arrested, which we covered last week, and then is now in possession of the Roman government. And the Jewish priests and rulers and society is calling for him to be crucified. And Pilate, who was just the weird name that you saw in there, is the ruler at the time. And since they lived in Roman control, he was the authority. He was the one that oversaw the area. So the Jews couldn't do what they wanted and were able to get Pilate to do it. But essentially, Pilate was like, hey, this guy's innocent. I don't see any sort of problem here with him. And Jesus was actually found not guilty by both Pilate and Herod. And so it was the Jewish people that were calling for it because he had blasphemed against them, is what they had said, and he had been saying he was the Son of God, and that was very against what they believed, and they thought that he was trying to tear apart their whole religion, and so they went after him. But in this moment, Pilate is saying, "Hey, I think this guy's innocent, and I don't have anything wrong with him in regard to Christ. But you guys are saying so. So instead of Jesus, I offer you Barabbas." And the thing about Barabbas is that he was actually very guilty. He had led a political revolt, a revolution, and a riot in the city, and had actually murdered people, and was convicted of that. And the Jewish people and leaders and priests were so mad with Jesus that they actually chose Barabbas to be free so that they could go after Jesus. And so, what's really important about this is that it's an early example of Jesus dying for those that might never know him. So, Barabbas at this point had maybe heard of Jesus, but we don't have any sort of history of him and Jesus together. And because of his past, it's likely that he might go down the same route again and likely doesn't know Jesus at all. And Jesus took his place. And it's a very symbolic thing of Jesus taking the place of those that are sinners, which is us. We sin naturally. And in Barabbas' case, there's a chance he might not actually even know Jesus or would come to know Jesus. But Jesus died for everyone. And there's going to be some people that don't get that. And this is an example of that, potentially. He died for those that maybe don't know him or will never follow him, but he died for them nonetheless because he loves them. And about this, and what's really important to me is that at any moment, Jesus could have said the right thing and been released. They gave him plenty of opportunities to just say what they wanted and renounce himself and do whatever he needed so that he could be set free, and he didn't. He knew what was coming, but he also knew his role in that, what was important about it. And so Jesus, knowing what the right thing was to do, still did it, despite what it was going to do to him in his body. And I think that that's a vital lesson for us, that if we're truly called to live a life like Jesus, then knowing what the right thing is for us, we have encounters like that every day of doing the right thing, and knowing what that right thing is, and having to choose that consistently, whether it's in school or for you right now at home, or within your friend groups or interactions with your family members. At any moment, we're going to be confronted by these moments that are what's right and what's wrong. And at times we don't want to do the right thing because it could have personal consequences to us. But Jesus shows us that we should always do the right thing, even when we know what could happen to us, because it's what's right. And even at this moment when he is being mocked and is getting ready to get beaten and hung up on a cross by his hands and feet, he still chooses to do what is right. And because of that, a very guilty man, just like us, gets to go free. And that was the first example of that. So that's Luke 23:13-25. Go ahead and pause this again and read verses 32-43, because I want to talk about this as well. So go ahead and pause and read that now. Excellent. Welcome back. So we are now in 32-43. And these verses are, Jesus is already up on the cross, and it talks about his interaction with the two criminals that are next to him, but also the centurions, the people, the Roman guards, essentially, that were in charge of him. And in this moment, Jesus is up on the cross, being held up by his own strength through nails in his body. And he's bearing the weight of the sin on the world. And in this moment, he's been beaten. He's been flogged. He has cuts and bruises and broken bones and things all over his body. And even is wearing a thorny crown, and people have spit on him. And in this moment, he has every right to just be angry. And by our standards, he could seek any revenge that he wants. But Jesus does something instead. He asks for God to forgive those that are mocking him. And he says, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know that I am who I say I am. And they are responding out of a position of hate. And they think that I'm challenging everything that they know. And he says that just by saying, Father, forgive them, for they do not know. This is just my interpretation. But he had the opportunity to respond with anger, but instead he responded with grace. He said, forgive them. And forgiveness is huge for us because it's very difficult. Just like I talked about earlier, it's the right thing to do, and we don't always want to do the right thing because it might not feel good to us in the moment, but it is the right thing. And forgiveness is one of those things. And if Jesus can do it with the full weight of sin on him in his most feeble, broken down state, then we can do it when we're kind of mad. We can forgive those that are around us. And the importance of Jesus showing us this is that we actually have an account of what happens after he responds in this way. The two criminals that are next to him on either side have different responses to Jesus being Jesus. One of them's like, if you truly are the Christ, save yourself and then save us. Like, if you're who you are, do that, do more. And kind of challenges him and makes fun of him. But the other criminal responds in a way that's juxtaposed to that. And he actually sticks up for Jesus. And he says, this man's innocent, and he's still going through all of this. And that criminal witnesses what Jesus did, and he responds in a way that's very important. He says, Lord, remember me when you enter into your kingdom. And he calls out, he's like, I see Jesus. I see who you are. And I want a part of that. I see that you're innocent and you're dying for those that are guilty. And I want you to do the same for me. I need you. And this criminal, which is how he's referred to in the Bible, is changed by the actions of Jesus and by acknowledging who Jesus is. And I think that that's really important. That I'd like it if we could get to that moment of realization that Jesus is what we need, and that he was innocent and lived a sinless life and died for us, so that we could live in a way that is better. And I hope that we can get to that moment before we're actually having to carry our cross, so to speak, or before we're being punished, that we might be able to react in a way and live our lives in a way of forgiveness and of doing the right thing before we're convicted, So if you have any questions about this, please leave a comment. You can email me. Shout out to Micah Hugo. He emailed me and has been interactive. And if you want a shout out or you want to converse, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'd love to keep in touch with you. I love you guys. I miss you guys. I hope you enjoy Easter with your families. And until then, God bless you.